Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Nathaniel Key. I am coming to you from the Idea Shack. I am the founder of the Idea Shack, and this is our webinar series. It's going to be available to you online where we discuss really cool and important topics that you are concerned about as artists for the artist community, because the Idea Shack is a community of artists and creatives. So we want to find the best way to serve you. And one of those ways is to talk about topics that are important to artists. So we're going to do that today. I am coming to you from Buffalo, New York, where it is a balmy 20 degrees and set to get a little bit colder today. But I am staying warm, and I hope you are too, wherever you are around the world. So again, this is our webinar series, and we're going to jump right into it. Today's topic is time management. And I want to talk to you even before we get started and I switch to our slides. I really want to talk to you about using time management in a way that's important for you. I am continually growing and learning about things that have to do with time management, accounting, anything that has to do with how to take your skill from a skill to being like a business or to being a business. So we're going to focus on that today. Why is that so important? Well, I believe it's important, and I've heard other people say it's important because you need to be able to make money from what you do. As an artist and as a creative, I know that it's important to us to just be able to have our freedom, to be able to create freely. But part of doing that requires us to have structure. And part of that structure is time management. So we're going to talk about time management today. I really want to urge you to take the principles that you see in these slides and in this PowerPoint and just use them for your own personal life and for your own personal good. Everything in here is not going to apply to you, and that's okay. But we can take some of the tools that you see in here and just really start to use them for your own life and in your own way. As a friend of mine reminded me the other day that creatives are different. We're just different people. We think of things differently. And we think about things like time in a different way. We might work our best at for me, it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning is when I've thought of some of my best ideas. For other people, they're morning people, so working at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning or earlier or later than that really just works well for them. So I want to encourage you to take some of the principles and the structure that's in here about time management and just apply it to your own life. One of the important things before we get started too is just to become aware. We're going to talk about that throughout this presentation, but become more aware of what works for you. If you are a morning person, then go ahead and get up in the morning and early in the morning and hit it, early. If you're not a morning person, then find out what parts of the day really speak to your creativity and really start to mold and shape the way that you structure your day and the way you think about time management around what works best for you. Because God has created us all to be different, but in very special ways that are unique to the gifts that He has given us. So I believe that, and I hope that you have the same experience, and I hope that you have plenty of success in great time management. So we're going to get into it, and part of talking about time management is really addressing like who really cares, like who cares how well we manage our time, how we use our resources. Other things that have to do with our day-to-day activities. Well, the reality is if I recognize we have different audiences. Some people are full-time entrepreneurs. Some people are partrepreneurs, say like a part-time entrepreneur where you work during the day or you work part-time and you do your side hustle or you do your thing on the side that involves your skill or your gift. And then other people are kind of working a job or somewhere in between just working a job or working part-time and wanting to pursue their craft. So wherever you are in there, recognize that one takeaway from this slide is that it's not just you that benefits from good time management, and including you being the person who benefits from you managing your time well really everybody around you and all the people you interact with, the folks who you have relationships with, are really benefiting from you managing your time well. I heard a really important saying as I taught 1 year, I coached 1 year, coached basketball several years, but I coached 1 year at University of North Carolina's basketball camp for mostly for grade school and high schoolers, but also a lot of younger kids too. And from the time that these kids were really young, they ingrained in them a saying that they said over and over and over and over again. And I really hope that, I've really bought into this saying, and it's been true for me. And I think it'll work for you too. And that saying is, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, don't bother. And they used to tell us that about being ready for the bus that would leave, and that this bus was leaving no matter what. It was leaving no matter what time you got there, or whatever matter what time anybody else got there. And the coach was always early. So being early was being on time. Being on time was being late. And if you're late, don't bother. And there's a funny story that one of their star players at UNC at the time got left because he was late for the bus and he missed whatever practice or game that they were going to. So they're really serious about that rule. But other people, as the slide says, in your family also care about how you manage your time. And I know that's not always easy. One size doesn't fit all about time, but recognize that other people also benefit from you having good time management skills. So also, before we get into any more of the meat and potatoes, which really come from other people's best practices for time management, we're going to talk about two specific topics before then. We're going to talk about your sleep, and we're going to talk about your schedule. So I know for me, sleep is becoming a huge commodity. I read something in a newspaper article that I put here recently that said that really most people are not getting enough sleep. And they define getting 7 hours. This research that was in this newspaper article that came from a doctor from the University of Pennsylvania said that if you're getting 7 hours of sleep per night, you're not getting enough sleep first. And then if you are getting less than 7 hours of sleep per night, you're actually functioning with kind of like an impairment that is akin to being a chronic alcoholic, Dr. Veazey says. So what does that mean? It means that you're used to being tired. So your body creates this new normal of being tired that allows you to function with an impairment. But the reality is that you don't really even recognize there's a difference, right? You just function being tired. So what do they advocate that you do? And first of all, that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing that you're waking up tired. You're waking up, you're getting into your day and you're tired. Later in the day, you're tired. You're just tired all the time. And I've felt this too, whether you have the freedom to control all of your day or you are going according to a job schedule or full-time work and kids and family, things like that. What this means for you is that your brain is not able to both decompress and also get rid of some of the junk that it needs to get rid of during the day, or things that it's stored up during the day and during the days. And so you end up piling a lot of stuff onto your brain that really affects how well your brain can process material. So this doctor advocates that you reset your sleep, not just during the week. There are some people that think that, okay, I'm gonna, if I got short on sleep yesterday or for a couple of days, I can get that sleep back, so to speak, or I can catch up on my sleep later in the week or on the weekend. And that doesn't work, as this doctor put it. But what does work, if you have the ability and the time to, is if you do lump those towards a weekend, or if you take several days. Or this doctor actually advocates taking a week of time, whether it's during vacation or something else. They said take a week of time and reset your body's sleep. So take several days at a time, and this could be 2 to 3 days if that's all that you have, or what have you. and sleep for as long as your body needs to sleep, for you to wake up and feel refreshed and relaxed and going into the day. And I know for me, for sometimes that's taken. Sometimes I've had to take what this doctor calls a sleep vacation, and it's been several days, but or at least it's been one day, and I would just sleep the entire day. And it was my body's way of saying, I'm tired. I've been tired for a long time. We need to get back to a place where you feel, you know what it feels like to be rested and to be refreshed. So I advocate that if you do have that time, to make that time, create that time for you to just be able to get some good knockout sleep where you don't have an alarm that wakes you up at a specific time in the morning or at night. And so now we're going to talk about your schedule. I've been endeavoring to be more transparent, so I put my schedule up on here. Don't dive too deeply into that. But I wanted you to have an example of a schedule, and why is this important? I found it's really important to have a written schedule. So I have a weekly schedule that I change and alter, but I also have a day-to-day daily to-dos. And sometimes I put those daily to-dos in programs like Asana. You'll see right here is a Google Calendar. I've also used the Monday app, which lets you do some project management and organizing of different projects that have other people's input on them online. You can do that through Monday.com. So this has become so important to me because of when I would schedule things and in just a really kind of an ad hoc way. I was writing stuff down, or I didn't write it down, or I told a person I was going to meet them at a certain time, or I forgot to put it on my phone, or I had all of these excuses for why I either missed meetings or I was late, or I just felt like I was behind the eight ball. And then I worked with a student for 4 years in a high school where I had to make his schedule. And it really helped me to understand the power behind seeing what you're going to do, and also planning for times for break, for rest, for relaxation. And so I started to use some of those same principles for myself. So I really advocate that you write things down first. Writing them down with a physical pen or a pencil really helps your brain to process some of the information about what you need to do in a way that for me is different than this normal computer screen and calendar right here. And then after you write those things down, I usually make a weekly schedule or a weekly plan on Sunday for the rest of the week. And then every day I do my daily to-dos. And then each day also has a specific schedule. And now we're going to get into, what does a day-to-day schedule look like, and how do you add some structure to that? Because as creatives, we got the freedom piece down. Like we got the creativity, we got to think outside the box, we got the I don't want to conform thing, we got that part down. And a lot of what I've found through consulting and through talking to creatives that they really need elements of structure that help them to be more successful and help them to be more on point. And it helps you actually even more during the times where you have those gaps, and you have spaces where you can now create in this space, and you can function in your greatness because you've organized things, you've planned things, you've scheduled stuff around when you're specifically hot, when your creativity peaks and what time of the day that is. So that's what I'm endeavoring to do, and that's what I advocate that you do as well. I want you to take the principles from our next slide and from somebody named Sam Ovens, and just see how they apply to your own life. Sam Ovens is a consultant. He has created a fabulous platform for consulting called consulting.com. If you are interested in consulting at all, I advocate that you check this thing out. Sam also has a lot of talks that he does that are about specific skills that people who desire to be successful need. So what are the principles that you need to be successful, and how do you walk them out in your daily life? And one of the things that Sam has through a link that's shared on this presentation is he has a whole presentation where basically he just talks about scheduling, and he talks a lot about his schedule. And what I've learned most from Sam Ovens' schedule is that he has a schedule. You know what I mean? So he has He has a specific way that he organizes his day. And for many people that, whether they have the freedom to be able to do that, in the sense of being a full-time entrepreneur, or they don't, and their job decides part of that for them, they still don't have a specific day-to-day schedule. And I understand that you have families, we have kids, we have things that can come between that. Right now, Sam Ovens, doesn't, at this point in time, he didn't have any kids. He just had a girlfriend, and so there weren't other things that were necessarily vying for his time, in that sense. But the specifics of his plan for the day is a principle that you can take to your day. And this is how he gets the most out of his day. This is how he maximizes his day. So I want to focus on this morning part, this especially this morning piece, and and also the relationship to when he wakes up and when he goes to sleep. You'll see if he goes to sleep at 11 o'clock, he gives himself 7.5 hours maximum between 11 and 6:30 to be able to go to sleep. Now, if he goes to bed a little bit earlier, he'll probably get more sleep than that. Later, less sleep, but at 11 o'clock, he knows that he's going to bed. So things need to be shut down before 11 o'clock so that he can go to sleep. And now we'll go back to the morning time to 6:30 and just say he wakes up at 6:30 in the morning. 7 o'clock, he goes to the gym. There's a gym that's close to his house, so he makes sure he can do that in really good time. Now he's got enough money that he's just built a gym, so he can just roll out of bed and go to the gym. So that's important for being active. Why is being active important? Because it stimulates your brain. It gets your brain going. Your brain fires faster, and it processes things quicker once your body gets up and moving and those neurons start firing. If you rolled out of bed and you haven't taken a shower, or you just like and go to your laptop or your computer, or you go into doing whatever it is, your body's operating at a certain baseline level. It really hasn't woken up yet. So he goes to the gym. After he goes to the gym, he comes out, and he takes a shower, he eats some breakfast, and he also does meditation. And then he starts work. That meditation time is important for clearing mental space and focusing on what he's going to do through the day and quieting his mind so that he can get rid of the stress and also the detractive stuff that can take him away from what he needs to do during the day. And then he starts work. So he starts work at 9 o'clock each day, and this is a man who works for himself. He doesn't have a boss that tells him he's supposed to be at work at 9 o'clock, but he knows that he's going to get the best out of his day if he starts at 9. Then he takes a break at 12:30. We're going to address that, when to take breaks and how long to work for, a little bit later on. But he takes lunch, comes back at 1 o'clock, does a break in a smoothie at 3:30 to re-energize himself, and then he works till about 7 p.m. and then done. And then it might work a little bit after that because of planning for the next day. Again, if you have children, if you have kids, if you have things that are vying for your time, you got to pick them up from school, you got to take them to practice, stuff like that. Schedule with your partner or schedule with your family to be able to end your work, maximize your time in planning for the next day, and still be able to get done the things you need to get done with other people. So at the end of the day, he plans for tomorrow today. He plans for the next day, what he needs to do. If you go back to 9 a.m., you'll see that it says start work, and that work is pre-planned from the previous day, from the day before. So he's going to do the same thing for the next day, and then 11 o'clock sleep. So I want you to see that this person has a plan. There's a quote that says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And Sam Ovens plans to succeed. So he plans out his day. Again, take the principles from this and apply this to what your everyday life looks like. It's going to look a little bit different for each of us, but know that having the structure is going to help you to be more successful than not having the structure would be. As a Christian, I always go back to what does the Bible say about time? And one of the really important and captivating passages it says about time is about seasons. And Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8, but specifically verse 1 says, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. Why is this important? Even going back to Sam Ovens, Sam described a time in his life where there were these ups and downs. Things would go really well for him, and then he would kind of self-sabotage, and he'd go back down to a place where he was just like kind of bitter and upset and judging people, and then he would pull himself out of that mindset and become more aware, and then just start to go up again. And that also had to do with his income. And what Sam started to realize was that he wanted to break this chain, and that would be really important to his success and to the success of other people that were around him. But what I will add to that he also realized is that he realized he was in a season. So and he realized that he was maxing out his potential for success in that season because of other factors in his life, because of personal factors. It could be drinking or partying with friends, or just doing something else that kind of kept him from succeeding at a level that he would have wanted to, and that he did want to. So how do I relate that back to the Bible? So if there's a season for everything, then know that there is a season for your success. And know that there is also a training period and times that you need to go through. And it may be a long time that you need to go through to break yourself of certain habits that are sabotaging your success. For some of us, that's our mindset. That's what we think about on a day-to-day basis, who we think we are. Do we think that we are going to be successful as an artist? Do we think that we even are artists? Do we think that the world is abundant and it has enough of everything? Do we think with lack, and that there isn't enough of everything? So there is a season for specifically for your success as well. And even if you're not in that season right now, I do believe biblically that there is a plan for you to succeed, and that you will, but that there's a training period, and you need to get ready. You need to be prepared. The Bible says that Moses was prepared in the desert for 40 years, in preparation of being able to lead people out of Egypt. So there's a time that's coming, and your time is as well. Go through the training period and learn what you need to learn so that you can have your success season as well. And here are some other verses about what the Bible says about time. Ephesians 5:16 says, making the best use of time because the days are evil. That's pretty self-explanatory. Make the best use of your time. Time is God's time, I believe, and we're here to be stewards of it. James 4:14 says, yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. I like to focus on the first part of that verse that says, basically, you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, for sure. You could get some good or bad news. Something could happen to somebody who you love. Something wonderful could happen. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, for certain. But what we do know, what we do have an impact on is this moment today, and we have an impact on planning for tomorrow. We also have an impact on whether or not we choose to take some forward stuff from our past, that is good or bad, and how it affects our present and our future. But know that, as that verse says, the time goes by fast and it vanishes quickly. Then what can you do about shaping your future today in this present moment? And overall, the big concept is just that time, I believe as a Christian, that time is not yours. It's something, as all things are, that God has given us to be stewards over. So what are you doing with your time? If we were to look at your average day, and we followed you around during your average day, what would it say about how you steward your time? And if you're happy with that, then keep hitting it. Keep doing your thing, and keep getting better. Continue to grow. If you're not happy with that, keep growing. Keep doing your thing and keep continuing to grow and endeavor to gain the wisdom that comes from knowing how to manage your time better. So now we're going to look at a couple of specific best practices that have to do with time management that I hope you can benefit from. And if you do not walk away with anything from this presentation, from this webinar, I want you to take this away, because this was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you too. Well, what is it? It's Stephen Covey's, who is the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's what he calls his 4 quadrants. And we're going to use Stephen Covey's example to talk about priorities. And even after you make a schedule, even after you got your sleep down, you're ready to hit it, you know what you're doing during the day, stuff happens. And people call you, situations come up, fires that you need to have put out arise. And especially in the full-time business owner and the full-time entrepreneurial role, things are going to happen that you definitely didn't expect. On your job, things are going to happen, and with your family, things are going to happen that you didn't expect. How do we plan with our priorities in mind? And what Stephen Covey says is that we need to plan in these quadrants, or we need to organize our priorities in these quadrants. And I'm going to talk about this at the very end again. I believe that even these quadrants need to come from your value system. So understanding what your values are important even before delving into these quadrants. But we'll talk about that real briefly at the end again. What are the 4 quadrants? Well, let's talk about the top row and the column all the way to the left first. There are things that are urgent. There are things that are not urgent. Likewise, on the left, there are things that are important. There are things that are not important. Stephen Covey says, and many other people who like Brendon, Burchard, and authors who have talked about having good time management and high productivity, focus on the things that are urgent. Well, actually, focus on the things that are most important. And they focus first on the things that are urgent and important. So you'll see in the 4 quadrants in the middle, there's the top left, which is urgent and important. The top right, which is not urgent but still important. The bottom left, which is urgent and not important. And the bottom right, which is not urgent and not important. So I want to begin with the end in mind, which is one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, and start down here in this bottom right quadrant. And I want you to just address what are the things every day that you do that are not urgent and that are not important. You know, I find that many people, by virtue of social media, their friends, who they claim to be their friends, but are really people that are just, they don't even have the same goals as you. Which, you know, you need to be around some of those people sometimes, but you can't be around those people all the time, because you're either going to where they're going or they're going to where you're going. So what are those things that you're spending your time on, the situations that you're in, the things that you're addressing in your business or by virtue of your craft that are not urgent and they're not important, and they don't help you to do what you've been gifted to do? I want you to do your best to cut those things out. And then we're going to look at the antithesis of that, and we're going to look at what are those things that are urgent and they're important. You know, what are those things that, if I'm a visual artist, these are the things that I need to be focused on. I need to be focused on getting into galleries. Well, actually, I need to be focused on doing work, on producing work. Because if I don't have any work that's produced, then I'm not going to get into anywhere. So what are, maybe there's a residency I can apply for. There are galleries that I can get into. But what's my core ethos? What am I creating right now? What am I focused on? What do I want to make? And how does my day-to-day activity show that is urgent and important for me? Because I should be creating that. I should be creating that. You know, likewise, as we look more into like how do you break down the other stuff that's in this quadrant. In quadrant number 2 is not urgent but still important. So, you know, when I think of examples of something that's not urgent but it's important, maybe it's finishing a part of a business plan, or maybe it's calling a person back that doesn't have to do with it's calling a person back for a referral or a sale for something. These are, you know, kind of businessy kind of terms, but it's not something that has to do with, not necessarily a sale. Let's say calling a person back for a follow-up that has to do with feedback. It's important, but it's not necessarily urgent. There's a sales call you need to make. There's a follow-up call that you need to make, or a person that you need to get connected with. There might be even work in sales and marketing that you need to do before you do some of that other stuff. Or you might need to finish a part of a plan, add something to a website, something that's important, but it's not necessarily urgent. And what people get confused in a lot of times is they put the non-urgent but important things before the urgent and important things. And so now what you have is like just a scrambling and a mix-up of these things, and this all happens during the course of your day, and then you get to the end and you feel like you didn't get anything done. So Stephen Covey helps us to kind of compartmentalize these things in our mind so that we can do the things that are the most important and the most urgent. And so this third quadrant is urgent but not important. You know, these are the things that people come to you with situations that seem like there's this quote that says, "Your lack of planning is not my emergency." It's a fire that somebody else started that they expect you to put out, and it's urgent. It's this thing that is urgent, but maybe especially urgent to them. But it's not really that important, and it's not important to what you do on the day to day. So it can wait for a little bit, and those are the things that don't need to get addressed first. So Covey says we should organize our day around the things that are urgent and important, quadrant 1, and then we should go to quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. I advocate that you cut as much of the non-urgent and non-important stuff out as humanly possible, and stick to the urgent and important. All right, so we're going to keep on flying through. We talked about what those things are, so this is just an overview of what those time management quadrants are. But they're really self-explanatory. If you want more, go ahead and take a look at Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Now I want to talk, merge of kind of Brendon Burchard and Oprah Winfrey's philosophies together, because Brendon Burchard is a life coach and a counselor that works with people like Oprah Winfrey, people like Usher, people that are celebrities and are just looking for ways to maximize their time and live their best life. And Oprah Winfrey and Brendon Burchard's, I've kind of merged some of their mindsets together that I've found about time and time management, and focus on these 3 areas about intentions, power, and results. So I had a friend of mine that got a chance to work with Oprah, and he talked about Oprah's camp and the people she was surrounded by, really focusing on the people who were coming in having really clear intentions. Okay, what do you want to get out of this experience? What can we help you with? What are you here for? What did you bring to the table? What would you like to add? So having those really clear intentions also in the course of our day helps us to understand how we are to spend our time. The power that lies in that is when we merge our intentions with the results that we want. So we set our intentions according to what our larger goals are. And if you don't know what those larger goals are, then you need to spend some time cultivating what those larger goals are, so that your intentions can become powerful by leading to those results. Some other things that Oprah and Brendon talk about are, I would say, my top 3. We already talked about intentions, so setting really clear intentions. Whether it has to do with your schedule for the week, or it has to do with what your larger goals are in your craft. If you're an artist, I want to be blank, or I serve blank through my art or my craft, or my gifting. Having those really clear intentions and really clear goals, whether it's a 3 to 6 months goals, a year's goal, 3 to 5 year goals, or 10-year goals, set a track for you to stay on a course. If you don't have a course, it's going to be hard for you to stay on track for it. There is a quote from the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland, where he asked Alice, he said, which way do you want to go? Or he said, where do you want to go? And she said, I don't know. And she said, which way should I go? And he said, well, if you don't know where you want to go, it doesn't much matter which way you go, because you can go any way that you want. You're not going towards a desired destination. So taking the time to set clear intentions has to do with setting goals, so that you can be able to be intentional with your day, and you can end up reaching that goal, or your day is plural, and reaching that goal. Power hour, I talk about, we're in a power hour right now, just time you're spending in listening to and being a part of this webinar. I advocate that people, and Brendon Burchard advocates that people work about an hour or 50 minutes at a time. Why? Because it gives your brain time to focus on something, be intent, to really hit it for about an hour, and then take a break. And he says, take a 5 to 10 minute break, walk around, get something to eat, get a snack. This is not a full lunch break or a meal, which you should set aside time for. But he says take 5 to 10 minutes, take a break, come back, hit it for an hour, boom, focus, stay intent. And if you're in the zone, I know what it's like to be in an artistic zone. You're in there for sometimes for hours at a time, and you're blocking everything out. You forget to eat. Everything just goes out but what you're working on. If you're in that zone, don't take a break. Like I believe that you've been gifted to be in that zone. Then stay in there and keep plugging away and keep doing your thing. If you're working on stuff that involves a screen or a computer or logistical or business stuff, then take that hour, plug away at it, take a 5 to 10 minute break, come out. It's going to allow your mind to refresh. This goes along with making sure you get enough sleep. I also advocate meditation. I do morning devotionals in the morning for at least 10 minutes. Usually it's more like 30. And I meditate before I start my day. So that's been really powerful for me. And then, lastly, just focus on one thing. Multitasking is really overrated. Oprah herself says you can have it all. You can do everything, but you just can't do it all at once. And for the people that try to do everything in one day, the day just becomes a mishmash of a whole bunch of different things. And then, like I said earlier, you just feel like you're not getting anything done. You focus on one thing and you focus on having a core motivation or outcome for that day, especially, it's going to add up. And one thing is going to get stacked on top of another. You're going to finish that piece of artwork. You're going to finish whatever that smaller thing you were working on is, and you're going to be able to add day by day towards what your goal is. So remember to focus on one thing. That's going to maximize your time as well. So some final thoughts I want to leave you with are these 3 words, and one of which is time management, so you won't have trouble remembering that. But earlier we talked about priorities, and I said I was going to talk about this at the end. But the thing I want to remind you of is that as you prioritize, as you figure out what is urgent and what is important for you, I want to take away something I heard Will Smith say. And Will Smith said that when he says that he prioritizes his family over work. Why is that? It's because of his values. It's because he has a certain value system. And a lot of times our value system relates to our spiritual beliefs about life. For you, it doesn't have to, but I would encourage you to start from a place of your values that has to do with what your belief system is about life. And Will Smith said that his values have to do with his family being over work. So if his family is over his work and his career, he said, if I'm sitting at the Oscars, and I'm at an award show, he said, and I get a call that something's wrong with my son, he said, there's nothing for me to think about. I'm going to go and go to my son and figure out what's going on with my son and help him, instead of sitting at the award show and maybe getting an award, or being conflicted over whether or not I should stay. So he has clear values, and he's made those values clear. He's put his family over his work. So it allows him to prioritize those things that are important to him based on what his values are. And I just advocate that you do the same thing. First, figure out what are your values. If you don't know that, spend some time with that. Then you can prioritize according to your value system. What's important to you? Maybe, if spending time with your family is important to you, then you want to schedule and organize your days around spending time with your family. You want to be able to have pockets of time where you can spend that with your family. You don't want to just be working from 9 in the morning to 9 at night and see your wife and say hello and go to bed, and see your kids and the same thing and go to bed. You want to be able to have your values, set your priorities, and then you prioritize your work according to those values. That will make things really clear for you. And then when it comes to managing your time, you manage your time according to those priorities. So, what are my priorities? And how do I structure and organize my time? Remember we talked about that schedule. If you looked at my Google Calendar and you looked at my schedule, you would see that I manage my time according to my priorities, and my priorities go according to what my value system is. And so whenever I need to change or shift something, I always go back to a place where I recognize what my values are. And then prioritize and manage my time from there. So I really hope this was helpful for you today. I hope you got a lot out of this. This webinar is going to be available on the Idea Shack at www.theideashackinc.com. My name is Nathaniel Key. I am the founder and CEO of the Idea Shack and owner. I started the Idea Shack to be a place where creativity would live. And I literally mean that. We work to develop live workspaces where creatives do not have to worry as much about the overhead costs of being a creative. They can live, they can work, they can create amazing stuff. I believe that creativity is the lifeblood of our society. And without artists, without creatives, our world would be an extremely dull and dry place. And as an artist and creative myself, I desire your best success. And I want you to have the tools that help you to become more successful. So that's what we're here for. We do free initial consulting with people. Your first consultation is free with us. We talk to you about setting goals. We talk to you about your personal growth and development as an artist, and what in particular you want to be able to grow in that will really help you to go to the next level. So for more information about that, you can check out any one of our social media sources. We're at The Idea Shack. And we're on Facebook at The Idea Shack as well. You can look at my LinkedIn profile, and you can also go to the website. It's www.theideashackinc.com. They have links on there where you can set up your first consulting session, and then you can go from there. So we want your success. We hope you got a ton out of this webinar about time management, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.